Since the dawn of time, man has used and built geometrical shapes to organize our world. No more so than now in the modern era, it feels perfectly natural to organize our digital lives in the same way. A good example of this is the humble but all-conquering spreadsheet. So when we want to update a record in a spreadsheet, we click on the cell that contains the data and we change it. SharePoint gives us the same functionality with SharePoint lists, using the aptly named Quick Edit function, where records can be edited inline without browsing to another screen. So where do we find this functionality in PowerApps? In particular, where is it in the gallery control? Let me give you a rundown on how I implement the Quick Edit function inside of PowerApps. And don't worry, it's really simple to do. One last thing, after you're done watching this video, if you liked it, make sure you click the like button just to show your appreciation. Okay, let's get started. Let's start things off with the Canvas app. Just going to call this grid. So the first thing I'm going to do is place down a gallery, and this is going to form the foundations of our grid. We're going to use the gallery control to display our data and then actually give us that grid construct to be able to edit and update the existing data source. And just select inventory. Sketch this out here so we can have a good look. Now in here, let's grab some text fields. Just need to point these values was part number. Pretty sure the last one was we don't need each individual cell to be anywhere near that big because we are displaying things in a grid. Let's just fix this. All right, perfect. Let's just put a border around here. All right, so let's put some headings on here as well. This was part number. This was supplier. And this was stock number. Just indicating how many we've got in stock. Maybe let's bold these as well. Perfect. How does that look? Nice. Got the beginnings of our grid. Now, before we start implementing our grid controls, we also need to make sure we're initializing a variable somewhere in our app. Now, I'm just going to do this on app load, but you could do this pretty much anywhere, anytime your app loads before we get to this screen. So when we get to the screen, we always want this variable to be set, and we're just going to call this, let's call this item ID, and I'm going to initialize that to 0. And you'll see what I need to use that for later. Okay, in our gallery, first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that each one of these fields by default, let's go to display mode, and by default we just want them to be in view mode. So now if we run this, we can see these are we're just viewing each element. We're not able to make any changes or update anything. Perfect. So next thing I want to do is drop control down here. And control I'm going to use is the pencil. Let's just call that this button, and it's the edit. Now in here, when we press that button, we want to set that item ID to this item ID. So that is the unique identifier for that row in the SharePoint list, because as we know, SharePoint lists, when you create a new item in the SharePoint list, it automatically gets a unique ID, and that is unique to the list. And what we're doing here, we're just setting our variable to this item ID, and then let's highlight all of these fields because it's going to be the same rule across all 4 fields. We want to, in the display mode, we're going to change this to view. We're going to put some logic in here. We're going to say if item ID is equal to this item ID, then the display mode, is actually going to be edit. Otherwise, it's view. Let's run that. You can see all of our fields are read only. If we hit our button here, so this has set all these controls on this particular row in the gallery to now be in edit mode, and we can make changes to these fields, but we as yet still cannot commit or save those changes back to our SharePoint list. So that's going to be our next step. So let's go ahead and do that. So just staying with the same kind of look and feel. So let's select inside of our gallery here, and I'm going to put a save icon now, and I'm going to drop it right on top. Of our edit button, and you'll see why I'm doing that in a second. Let's just call that btn save. On the select function, I'm just going to do a simple patch here. Let me go through this quickly. I'm just patching all the columns that are in my gallery here, all the fields that I've created in my gallery, and I'm just patching them back to SharePoint with the simple patch command. If you don't know how to use patch, I'm pretty sure I've covered this in a previous video. I'll just link it on the screen now. Okay, so this is going to patch our values back, but as you can see, if we run this, the buttons are overlapping, so that's not great. Our field is still in edit mode. We can make some changes, and yep, lets me click that, and that change has been committed back to SharePoint, but we're still in edit mode and we've still got this sort of clunky interface happening. So let's go back to our gallery and back to our save command. We want to add an extra step here. Let me just expand this out so we can see it a bit better. Let's put a semicolon in to separate the command, and we want to set our variable again. Remember, it was the one we initialized to 0 at the start. We want to set that back to 0. So if we run this now and I click save, it saves it and it goes back to read-only mode. Perfect. So the next thing I'd like to do is just to, I need to fix up these icons for starters. So let's select the edit button and go down to the visible. So at the moment it's set to true. So what we want to do is put some more logic in here. And if you haven't done these if statements before, I have also covered this in another video and I will link it on the screen now. Okay, but feel free to click on that or go back to it after. But really, if you're familiar with programming, these if statements should be fairly straightforward. Okay, so if this item ID is equaled to this item, and this is our edit button. So if item ID is equal to this item ID, that must mean we've already clicked on the edit button. So we don't want to show otherwise make it true. Helps if I get the name of the... Okay, so if we go in here and we click on... Can we get it? Can't get it. Right, so we need to keep going here. So the other button we need to hide and show is the save button. So let's go down to its visible properties. And if... This is going to be the other way around. So if item ID is equal to this item ID, then we want to show it, otherwise we don't want to show it. All right, so now we can see we're hiding and showing those buttons depending on a status, depending on our variable, and we now can only see our edit buttons. So this is looking a lot better. So let's edit this record. And you can see I can select different records. And I've just got the option to edit whatever record I'm selecting. So this interface is really close to what we need. So say this part number is changed. I'm gonna make that change and click that, and now we're saved and we're all good. So right now we're really pretty close to an editable grid. But how about if we want to add a new record? So let's go ahead and add the controls and the functionality we need to do that. Let's insert another button, but this time it's going to be outside of the gallery. Actually, we don't want a button. Let's keep going with the icons. And let's add a plus button up here. So on our select, we want to set the item ID to patch a new record inside of our SharePoint list. Now, I don't even think we need this really. We can just patch an empty record. Although, I believe, actually come to think of it, title probably needs to have something in there when we're patching. So let's just send a blank to title. And you can see here, we're going to return back from our patch function, and we just use this defaults and our data source here to do that. If we include that parameter inside of our patch, patch will return the ID, our unique ID that of our SharePoint record back to PowerApps, and we're just going to set our item ID to that ID. So now we know the exact ID of what record we just created, and we're setting the item ID. So that should work perfectly inside of our gallery. So we shouldn't really need to make any additional changes to that. So let's see if just that works on its own. Let's just save that. Let's click on the new plus, and yeah, we've got a new record here that's been created in our SharePoint list, and we've got our save. We can make some change. Well, let's put something proper in here. Project. Actually, let's put Raspberry Pi, because I recently bought one of those. And well, part number. Put the right info in here. Element 15, and I've got one of them. Let's click on save. So that's us adding a new record to our SharePoint list. Now, if we had that and we do that, we select any of these, basically the only way out is either by selecting another record or clicking on save. Now, it would be really nice if we also had like a little exit button here, so we don't really need to commit the change or do really anything else besides cancel out of edit mode. So let's put that in now. This has got to go inside of our gallery. And we're not doing button, we're doing an icon. And we're just going to put a little cancel button in here. Let's just line this up to get it around the same size, but this is going to be next to our edit. And in here, what we're going to do is set our item ID back to 0, because we don't really want to do anything else besides edit exit mode. And we really only need to show this button when we are in edit mode. So let's go to visible. So if the item ID is equal to this item ID, then let's show that. Otherwise, let's not even bother showing it. Okay, let's test that out. I'm going to edit resistors, and cool, I've got a save button and an exit button. Say, hey, no, I didn't really want to edit resistors. I want to edit MOSFETs. And now this part number has, say, changed a little bit. Let's make that save. All good. Now let's add a new line. Project boxes. And part number Raspberry box. We also got these from element 14. And we got 3 of them. On save. Now we could make a whole heap of more improvements to this, like on our edit button or on our save button, we could add an additional dialog box or message box to say, do you really want to commit these changes? And just like previously, if you're not sure how to do that in PowerApps, I have a video and I'll link to that on the screen right now. We could also have a message box that pops up to say, do you really want to exit out of editing? So all these kind of things we could add improvements to. We could also add some visual, sort of additional visual elements here, like lines that break up the different rows, and we can add sort of nicer headings and so forth. But really today I just wanted to show you the basic techniques on how to get this grid inline editing working with your gallery. Okay, that's another PowerApps tutorial. Make sure you click that like button if you liked the video, and of course subscribe if you want to keep up to date with all the latest stuff coming out. I've got plenty of videos coming up, so yeah, hit that like button and hit the bell notification to keep in the loop when I'm posting new videos to this channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.